Good day, folks. We're going to just give people a little chance to join in, and we'll see who give them a chance to pop in from some of the other sessions that they were in. I'm Ravi TANGRI. I am going to be your host over the next 45 minutes to explore this whole area. Can mindfulness be a strategic advantage? That's exactly what we're going to explore over this session. And I'll give you a spoiler alert. I absolutely believe it can. And there's some real solid data that shows that. Also, just to let you know, as we're waiting for others to come in, at the end, I'm going to have a resource for you and for your teams for you to be able to explore mindfulness. If you already do, it'll help you go even deeper. And if you are just curious, it'll really help you move into this. So stay tuned. I'll be telling you about that at the end. So I'm Ravi TANGRI, and this session, as I said, is about how mindfulness can be a strategic advantage, especially in a fast-changing world like ours, where everything has gone wackadoodle over the last year. So what I'd like to do, just to get things rolling, is check in with where you're at. So what I'm going to ask you to do is pick up your smartphone, okay, and turn on your camera. I'm going to put on a QR code for you to scan, and when you scan it, it will take you to a page. It'll let you know that it can take you right to a web page. So open up your smartphones, turn on your cameras, and just go to this page, scan this. If you're not sure how to make that work, just open the browser on your smartphone and go to slido.com and type in NextNS, okay? Just go there, and I've got a few questions for you. Please keep this browser window that opens up open throughout the session, because I'm going to be coming back to this, but we're just taking a pulse right now, making sure that you can check things out. So what we're going to do is I'm going to get you, the first question is, I want to ask you, on a scale of 1 to 5, where where basically 5 is like, let's just get out of this. How ready are you to get out of this pandemic? So just punch in your answers and let's see where we're at with this. How ready are you to get out of this pandemic? And if you're just coming in, just scan the QR code or go to slido.com on your smartphone and type in NextNS. So a couple of people are going, meh, okay, that's okay, we're doing fine. Let's move on. Let's just check in where everyone else is. Just type in your answer. How ready are you to get through this pandemic right now? So it doesn't sound like people who are tuned in right now, at least, are getting overly stressed out. But we'll see how it proceeds. Give you a minute to do this. This is the first time we're letting people come in. Just scan the QR code or go to slido.com, type in NextNS as the code, and just type in your answer. So, yeah, someone saying, let's get done with this. I am so done with this. We're past the 1-year mark. How much more is it going to take? And next question that I've got for you is, what is it that you're looking forward to after everything lifts? What are you most looking forward to? So just type in your answers, whatever things that you're looking forward to getting back to. Travel, God, yes, please let us travel. What else are you, else is it that you cannot wait to get back to? Just type in right in there and let's see what starts to pop up for people. What is it that we're missing the most over this last year? Got to be more than travel. For me, it's dance. I love dance, salsa, West Coast swing, all sorts of things. Seeing family, travel's obviously a big one. getting to travel, even here in Atlantic Canada, it's right, ever since November, it's hard just crossing the borders, right? If you've got family across the border and such. Now, the third question, we're just making sure this is working okay as we go forward, is over the last year, what has been your best stress buster through the pandemic? What's been your best stress buster over the whole pandemic? What sort of things do you do? For me, I do meditate. Music is awesome. Beach walks have been amazing for me. Just getting out, it's very healing, or even just to sit by the ocean or hikes in nature. Yoga, absolute wine. Okay, that works. Doing puzzles. Yeah. I remember before COVID, when the kids were little, we would just leave a puzzle on the dining table for weeks. But now it's, obviously wine is taking off as the biggest stress buster. Okay. But now, since you're just there all the time, you could probably finish a puzzle a week. Good. Okay. Obviously, the liquor store sales have been doing well. So please keep your browser window on your smartphone open to that. There'll be some questions coming up. So how do you know? You hear lots of stories about mindfulness, and it sounds wonderful, but really, what kind of a difference does it make in real life, in the workplace? The question I ask is, can you really bring mindfulness down from the mountaintop into the meeting room? I discovered that you can when I had the amazing experience of looking back through time at myself to compare the stressed out me with the new me who'd learned the power of mindfulness. It was really bizarre. It's the fall of 1992. I had just started my consulting practice a few months ago, and I'm finalizing a proposal for what I hope will be my first major contract in partnership with another consultant. And as I'm working on the proposal, I'm looking at the me I was a few years ago, pace in and out of my office, stress radiating off him like a lightning storm. In the late 80s, I worked with a broadcasting company based in Western Canada, transforming the way the whole organization worked across the country. It was incredible work. I loved it, but I was a poster child for workaholism. I finally burned out, and I decided to come back where I grew up, Nova Scotia, to recharge and to reconnect with family. I took jobs teaching at a couple of the universities here for 3 years. And while I loved working with the students, I abhorred the bureaucracy. Also, because I only had an MBA and not a PhD, compensation and job security were a joke. Now, over those 3 years, I took time to breathe and do a lot of personal work to defuse those workaholic programs. I still spent long hours marking assignments for my students. I don't believe in multiple guest tests, so I had them do case studies and projects with real companies to build strategies. And I gave detailed feedback to them. But, compared to my corporate days, these hours were a walk in the park. When I moved back here, I had chronic fatigue, and it took a lot of internal work, as well as diet and other things, to get me back on track and break the workaholic cycle. But I finally remembered how to enjoy life. That's when I first stepped into mindfulness. I took programs to help me understand myself and better understand what my passion was and how to follow it. I love the change in strategy work I did in the corporate world. And I loved helping my students unlock and discover what they didn't know they could do. Somehow I wanted to bridge the two. So this spring, in the middle of a massive recession, with most of my business contacts across the country, thousands of miles away, I took the leap. And instead of going back in the corporate world directly, started up my own consulting firm to do the change and strategy work that I loved. Another consultant I know, Bob, has an office in a brand new high-rise in town, and he had a spare office he rented to me. And the last 6 months consisted of me getting out there, making contacts, promoting myself, and spending my savings. Last week, a friend of mine let me know about this contract coming up for tender, and Bob and I decided to partner on it. We've been working on it all week, and the deadline is in 3 hours. I've spent most of today pulling together our work and typing it into the final proposal because I can type and Bob, even though he's the senior consultant, can't. Now, Bob is 30 years older than me. He's worked extensively in the corporate world, in the human resources area, and has been consulting for 2 years. In terms of experience, he's way beyond what I bring to the table. But his behaviors today is, let's say, intriguing. What I've discovered is, despite having a PhD in psychology, he is not great at managing stress and uncertainty. As I've been working away at my computer, he has been carving a path in the carpet between his office and mine, grumbling away like Yosemite Sam when Bugs Bunny gets away from him for the 10th time, snapping at me for not being further ahead, and then stalking off down that well-worn path, grumbling away until he returns a minute or two later. It was really bizarre, because that's when I had the sudden realization that was me just a couple of years ago. Holy kimono. Stress to the max, not knowing how to manage it, and just running around like crazy. That's how I lived life, deluding myself and others into thinking I thrived on the busyness and was actually productive. And here I am now, calmly typing away, zero stress, and even a little excitement now at how well this is coming together. I can feel we're going to win the contract. I know exactly how it's coming together, how much time it'll take. It'll be close, but I'll have enough time to print it off and drive to where it needs to be submitted. And all this while, Bob comes in and out, buzzing like an angry hornet. And just like a hornet, I leave him alone because I know if I engage him, he'll explode. This is big insight into who he really is and how he works under pressure. And I've already made the decision. This is going to be our first and last contract together. And this is when I realized the payoff of investing the last 3 years before the next storm hits to prepare myself so I can better manage myself and the next storm of life. I'm finished, and I print it off and I drive to the office where I need to submit it with 20 minutes to spare. I know we're going to get this, and I feel the elation surging through me as I head off to celebrate with friends. That was with 3 years of work in mindfulness, and that was almost 30 years ago. So I'm bringing 30 more years of experience and insight to you then than I had even then. So what are we going to do? Well, first off, we're going to get into, as I just showed you, what's the real difference between mindfulness and the stress. I want to get into why we need to support our people, why that is so critical. There's, beyond the fact that it's the right thing to do, there's actually a strong dollars and cents business case for it. We want to get into what I call the healing journeys. There's different ways people react to stressors. There's a journey you go through, and how you support yourself, how you support your team is going to be different based on where they are. And finally, I'm going to be providing you with 3 incredibly simple techniques to help you, to help your team move forward. And also, as I said earlier, as people were just coming on, I have a special resource for you to really get into what to help you really bring mindfulness into your life, to make it really work for you. So that's the journey we're going on. The first thing I want to do is explain to you why this is so critical. Besides, as I say, it being the right thing to do, there's actually dollars and cents business case for this. It's interesting, in the panel earlier, I think it was Fiona mentioned that the studies about inclusive managers showed that their teams were 19% more productive and made 20-some% better decisions. This is very much in line with this, with what I'm going to share with you. I think there's a strong correlation in this between supporting your team and understanding and inclusivity, that they can leverage each other. So let's get into this. Just really briefly, the first bit of data is from a study called the National Work-Life Conflict Study. This was done of 55,000 people across Canada, both public and private sectors. So the results are rock solid. The data is totally sound. The key here is one part of the survey asked people how their bosses were. Okay, it asked it asked them specific behaviors that described supportive behavior, right? Bosses that listened to them, that coached them, that focused on output, not hours. It's not about you sitting at your desk from this time to this time. It's about, are you producing the output? So that's the key. So this data I'm going to show you, there's two sets. One is supportive leaders, the people who had supportive leaders. The other is those who are not supportive, but also middle of the road. So not just comparing the best and the worst, but the best and the worst and the middle of the road. Okay, so let's take a look at this. This is a bunch of numbers here, but you might need to go full screen to see this, but I'll tell you, on the left-hand side, it talks about high levels of stress. And remember, the blue here are supportive, those employees who had supportive leaders. The red is those who had non-supportive leaders, or those who are middle of the road, right, who are really effective leaders. Only 33% of those with supportive leaders had high levels of stress, reported high levels of stress. 70% of those with non-supportive leaders reported high levels of stress. Burnout, only 18% of people with supportive leaders felt they burned out, compared to 44%. High levels of depression, 18% of those with supportive leaders compared to 52% of those with non-supportive leaders. And here's the thing, life satisfaction, not just work satisfaction. This is overall life satisfaction. People talk about how you have your work life and your home life. You don't, you have one life. 61% of those with supportive leaders said they had high levels of life satisfaction, compared to only 24% of those with non-supportive leaders. So there's another thing you've got to understand from this data, is that leadership is the biggest impact on corporate culture. 70% of corporate culture is shaped by your leadership. And that includes the mental health of your people. Okay, corporate culture is a fancy word, but it's just, how do you do stuff? How do you interact? How do your people work? And leadership has a massive impact on the mental health of your people. So that's one study. The other one I want to show you gets into the dollars and cents. This was by a gentleman by the name of Dennis Kravets, who tracked a whole range of companies. This was all private sector over 10 years. And he looked at what the culture was, but he also looked at the financials. And he did the same thing. He called it something different from supportive leaders. He called it people management practices. Okay. And he tracked how financially they were based on, were they good leaders or were they not? So here is the data from his. Again, the blue shows supportive leaders with good people management practice. The red shows the non-supportive. And everything there, from sales growth to profit growth, to profit margin, to overall growth, to total return, is 2 to 3 times higher with supportive leaders, with those with good people management practices. So what does this say? This says that a bureaucrat, an autocrat can run a profitable company, but they're flushing half their profits down the drain if they're micromanaging and beating up their people, if they're not supporting them. Okay, and realize all of this data is pre-COVID. Now we've added a global pandemic, all sorts of other stuff that's happened with in the last year with Black Lives Matter, with political situations, all sorts of things that have created huge traumas for people. And in Nova Scotia, we've got the added unique distinction of what we're coming up on the first anniversary of the mass shooting, which is another traumatic event. This is what's been happening while people have been thrown out of their environments, total unfamiliar, dealing with working from home, dealing with technology, dealing with looking after their kids and schooling kids and all of that, and trying to make it all work. This is a time when they need more than ever before your support to be able to find your way through. And if you're going to support them, you as a leader have to make sure you've got the support you need. You've got to look after yourself first so that you can support them and understand them. In the panel as well, there's an interesting term that came up. They said, don't look for work-life balance, look for work-life integration. That's incredibly true now as people are working from home, dealing with looking after kids, dealing with all of this stuff. They won't necessarily be doing this certain hours. But what you've got to focus on is, are they producing the results? And if they don't have to be there for those hours, as long as they get the results done. That is a 1960s mindset. And it's about, are you getting the work done? Not, are you sitting at the computer for 8 hours? Because a lot of people are not in today's work. So what I want to ask you, this is to go back to the Slido now, to go back to your phones and ask you, have you seen the difference that leadership makes in the workplace? What I'm talking about how leadership can either drive productivity, engagement, inclusion, all of these things, or it can kill productivity. So just if you can scan the QR code or just go to slido.com and type in next NS. And let's see. Have the stuff that I've showed you, this is, pretty solid data, but we all have anecdotal experience. Have you seen this? And we're getting pretty much 100%. We all know this is true. We all know this is the way the workplace is. And it is really up to leadership to shift. It's not about doing something to the people down there. We have to change as leaders if we are going to shift the organization. And that comes from how we're supporting them. We have to first make sure we're resourced, and then we need to be able to support them. And the support is going to be different. Probably you need to personalize it based on who they are from so many factors, from personality, it could be from diversity issues, all of these things. Different people are going to require different levels and different types of support to be able to move through. But right now, I think it's pretty safe to say that everyone needs some degree of support. I'm actually a little concerned myself about some of the data. Before COVID, they said that at some point, 1 in 3 people will encounter some mental health challenges. The latest data that I've received says that at this time, 1 in 2 people are starting to suffer from depression. And that's just depression. Doesn't include all the other mental health challenges. This is out there. We need to be able to support ourselves and our people, and not just in the workplace. So your people, your friends, your family, your community, everyone's there needing some degree of support. There's a heaviness that's out there after a year of this. So one other thing I want to get into is how there's actually different stages people go through. They go through at different rates, but everyone goes through these stages at some point when dealing with change, okay? And you need to know where you're at, and you need to know where your people are at to be able to support yourself and them better. So what are these stages of change? Well, the first is simply, I'm fine, everything's good. Oh, no problem, we're just dealing with it, everything's good, haha, we have no problems at all. This is denial. This is when everyone, you tell them about the changes and that this is going to happen, they go, oh yeah, okay, they smile, and then they just go back to doing it the way they've been doing it. You know, because of working from home, because of all these shifts, because of all the social distancing, there are changes in processes, some changes that may be lasting a long, long time. And these changes can shift all the time as the number of cases go up and down. So you're constantly adapting. And if people are just sort of going on autopilot, they're not really acknowledging what's there. And if they're in denial, the key is you've got to keep telling them. You keep telling them through one-on-one chats. You keep telling them through emails, through video conferences, through all the ways you can. You cannot over-communicate changes. Cannot be done. Hasn't been done in the history of mankind. Will never be done. Okay? You can only under-communicate. And so that's with your people. What about you? How do you know when you're in denial? Anyone? Anyone got a thought? How do you know when you're in denial? Well, it's a trick question because you don't know because you're in denial. So this is where you need a support system. You need your peers there, people there that are going to come up to you and go, wake up. This is happening. You're not dealing with it. You gotta open up to this. This is happening. You gotta accept it. And that support system is critical. Whether it's peers, friends, even sometimes your executive team, employees, whatever, someone needs to be able to be there to be challenging you when you are in denial. Who do you have that you can count on to confront you when you're not acknowledging what's happening and what you've got to do? That's one quick action you can take, is say, who can I count on? Who do I reach out to? So that's the first stage, denial. The second stage is change. We all know very well, this is what we associate. This is what I call chaos. This is when you know the change is happening and you are just overwhelmed. Okay, we've got to do this. We've got to change the process because of this and the social distancing. How do we do this? And the mask, and how many people can we have in, and how do we work with, and Zoom, and Zoom's changing every time. We've got to upgrade, and all of these pieces, the millions of details, you just get to overwhelm. So the key here is, whereas in the first stage you had to tell, you got to shut up and listen. People need to vent to get their frustrations out. They need to get it out. And so you've got to have that ability to hear them out. Now, if you are the leader, how do you vent? Who can you call? Who can you reach out to that you can call, use your lifeline? You can say, look, we're going out for beer, we're going out for coffee. I'm just going to vent, I'm going to dump. And I don't want you to say anything. I don't want you to fix it. You're just going to sit there and smile. I just need to get it out. Okay? So those are the two critical stages. The other two stages, the change curve, you don't get there until you deal with these, are when you start to engage people and then you celebrate as you get to key milestones. So now what we want to move to now is whoops, slipped forward. We want to move to those three techniques that I promised you. The first requires some really high-tech resources, okay? This is going to cost you a lot. It's going to set you back. You need a coil-bound scribbler. Part of the reason we're overwhelmed is we've got 10,000 things running through our head, and they're not necessarily big deals. They're kind of small, but there's so many of them, we're overwhelmed. It's like being pecked to death by ducks. So what you do is you get a coil-bound scribbler, and on the first page, top of the first page, you write down the first problem that's bothering you. Flip the page. Don't even try to fix it. Second page, write the next one. Flip the page. Next page, write the next one. Keep going till you run out. If you think you got a lot of problems, get a 300-page scribbler. Go to town. Have fun with it. Then you go back to the first page and just look at that one. Be mindful about it. And identify all that you can do. You know you're going to get through the rest, so you can be fully mindful about this. And the moment you get stuck, flip to the next page, jot down what you can do. The moment you get stuck, go to the next. Don't let yourself, and you just keep going through. When you get to the end, go back to the beginning. You'll find 95, 98% of them are no-brainers, that if you're mindful about them one at a time, you deal with it. The one or two or three that are big, then you can make some progress, but you're also not being drained by all of those other things. And you can actually focus more mindfully on those because you're not distracted. Okay? You can do this with your team as well. You set up either physically with a wall or flip chart, or virtually with a virtual one, and you use Post-its to put all the different things in. Then you focus on one at a time and come up with the action plans. Very easy to do with a team, to bring mindfulness into that. The next, ever feel like this in the last year? I think a lot of us have. What would you say if I could show you how to go from this to this, just in a moment or two? Would that be useful? So here again, very high-tech tool. I know I use real high-tech stuff. Remember, I said I say it's not rocket science, you can believe me, I'm a rocket scientist. What you have to do is breathe. When you are stressed, all these things running through your head, the stress response is going through you. You have over 30 hormonal changes and 1,400 chemical changes poisoning your body with toxins, aging you, breaking down your immune system. You also shut down your brain because you don't need to think. Think about the stress response. When the saber-toothed tiger came down back in the old days, you didn't have to sit down and do a cost-benefit analysis of what you have to do. You either fight or you run. Real simple. You don't need the brain, so it gets shut down. So you're way, way less resourceful with all sorts of toxins going through your body. To stop that stress response, the simplest way is what's called a relaxation response. And what you do, take a nice deep breath, hold it for a moment, and let it go. Maybe a couple. Don't hyperventilate yourself. Now, it may be difficult for you to do in the moment. So something that I've done with my coaching clients is I've said, look, if you can't do it right then, go to the bathroom, go in a stall, close the door, and just go, and just sort of push it away. The first couple of times, it's like building a muscle. Sounds silly, but you know what? If it works, who cares? If you're feeling that stress response, a nice deep breath triggers a relaxation response, stops the poison, brings your brain back into the equation. And you can be a lot more resourceful. Just take that moment to be present and mindful about your breath, and you can shift how you respond. You'll respond instead of react. So that's 2. The third one is the most powerful, probably Jedi Mind trick that I've got for stepping into mindfulness. One of the biggest barriers to mindfulness is the nonstop, incessant head chatter that goes on and on and on. You're probably up half the night. You're distracted all day, second guessing yourself, beating yourself up. Would it be useful to you if I could show you how you shut that off like that? Would that be useful? Here's the way that you do this. Now, this is going to sound a little odd, but you know what? If it made sense, you probably would have figured it out already. Just go with me on this, okay? This is going to sound really strange. Do not think about this. Just go with the first response, okay? First response you get. I'm going to ask a question. Get the sense of that self-talk, that head chatter, that monkey mind right now, okay? And, it could be, oh my God, is this guy for real? I mean, can he really shut that off? Whatever. Just get a sense of that. Now, first sense, don't think about it. Where in your head is it coming from? Top, left, front, right, back, center, what? Okay, just get that sense. Doesn't matter where it is, there's no right answer. It's wherever it is. Now, this is going to sound really weird, but go with me. Just imagine wherever it is, imagine almost like you could pull it on a piece of string. You could pull that internal dialogue, that self-talk to the top of your head. What do you notice? For some people, the quality of the voice changes. For others, it doesn't. And that's okay, whatever happens. Now, just imagine almost like you could pull on a piece of string, pull that internal dialogue, that self-talk to the very back of your head. And what do you notice? What happens? For some, again, it might change. For others, it might not. Whatever happens, it's okay. Okay? Now, there's a spot right here in the back of your head where your spine meets your skull. So just imagine almost like you could pull that voice, almost like you're pulling it on a piece of string, right into that spot where your spine meets your skull. And there's a spot in there where it just fits just right. And just do that. What do you notice happens when you put it in there? It goes away. You move from this to this. I have no idea how their neurophysiology works. They did figure this out by talking to Buddhist monks who'd been meditating for 50 years. They didn't do this consciously, but they somewhere over the 50 years, by hit or miss, they discovered that moving the voice there silenced the self-talk. You don't have to go through now 50 years of practice and hit and miss. You can just do it. And doing it once is not enough. If you really want this to be a habit, to be able to be a door into mindfulness, 4 or 5 times a day, like clockwork, I'd like you to just do that. You don't have to move the voice to the top or the back. Just pull it to that spot where your spine meets your skull. And while you're doing that, just do this. And each time, it may be difficult at first, but it's like a muscle. It'll get easier. And by doing this every time, after a week, you won't even have to think of moving the voice. You just go, and for me, I feel a lightness as the weight of that goes away. Okay? One of those times each day, extend it for 5, 10, 15 minutes and build that muscle as well. And so what you want to do is maybe meditate, maybe go for a walk with the voice silent. If the voice pops up, just pop it in again. And just go with that. If you meditate, this will let you go deeper. If you've had trouble with meditation, then this might get you in, because it will silence your self-talk. So I've got a couple of resources for you. I promised you on that. Because of the pandemic, I've made my full Mindfulness 101 program available for free to anyone that needs it. So all you have to do is go to saynotostress.com. You can access it. This will have the string technique. It'll have a whole range of other processes for you that will let you bring mindfulness from the mountaintop down into the meeting room, into the rest of your life. You can use this for yourself. You can pass this on to your team members. Please make use of it. I want to make sure that everyone who needs it can access it. Just go to saynotostress.com. And so I'm just going to skip that because we are a little tight on time. If you want to connect up with me, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, please do. I'm regularly putting new resources out on there to be able to help you bring more mindfulness into the workplace, into the rest of your life. Simple Jedi Mind tricks that help you move forward to build your resilience. And so with that, we'll see, we've got a couple of minutes still for questions. If people have questions on this, please let me know, and we will take a few minutes to address that. So just jot them in. And I went through, by the way, those techniques fairly quickly. You want more support, more details, just go to that saynotostress.com. You'll find those and a whole bunch more to help you. So, okay, so I'm hearing there's no questions right now. Let's just take a quick boom. And if you can type in the chat, I'm curious, of the 3 techniques that I showed you, which one for you do you think you will find the easiest, that you can put into effect right away and start playing with? The book, where you write down the things on different pages, breathing, or the string technique? Just jot in there. And as we do, the notebook, breathing. So again, different people, different techniques. So I would like to thank Next for bringing me in. Thank you for attending. And again, please take advantage of the resources. And if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you very much, folks.